So, I would like to talk about the most famous part of the parsha that no one knows. It's in Parshas Mishpatim. What is that? Nasa v'Nishma. You only knew it when you said it's the most famous part that no one knows. Nasa v'Nishma. And what's incredible, and Moshe Feinstein over here in his awesome style, Moshe Feinstein hones in on the fact that last week really was Ma'amad Har Sinai, and the psukim in reality last week said Nasa v'Nishma. What did the pasuk say last week? The pasuk said V'yanu kol am yachtav v'yoimru kol asher diber Hashem Nasa. Whatever Hashem says, I'm going to do. And then this week it says Vayikach sefer pris biyadai v'yikra baz deyam v'yoimru kol asher diber Hashem Nasa v'Nishma. The question is, if we already said it last week, what are we adding on this week? If you're going to be Nasa, the only way to be Nasa is if you were Nishma. So what exactly is this incredible entity called Nasa v'Nishma that we know so much so? The Gemara in Shabbos teaches us that the Malachim commented to Hashem, Mi gila raz zel lebanai. Who taught my children this incredible secret of Nasa v'Nishma? Question is, we already knew it last week. So Ramesh over here, in really multiple pieces, he says a theme that at the same time might be difficult to stomach, but at the same time is really empowering. And I'm going to read a few lines. I know that Ramesh did not write this. The Rosh Moshe was written by a Talmud. These are Ramesh Feinstein's drashos that he gave. But it's mekubal that it's, this is Ramesh. And the question that Ramesh here grapples with is that, can one say, I'll do the Torah, but I won't really understand it? Can one say, I'll fulfill what needs to be done, and that's all? What do I need to really exert effort into doing? For what real reason? I'll check off the boxes, and I'll go further. And that's really Ramesha, so many years before, such a issue crept out in Klal Yisrael. Ramesha brings up this idea that, why not? I did what I needed to do. I davened. I learned. And what's the problem? And he comes from the pasuk. He says, "Shetasim lefneim," and Rashi says, don't learn just a perek, a mishnah, that it should be in your mouth and you don't have to worry about it. And Ramesha explains that at times a person feels, why not? What's the problem? I learned. I know it. I followed. I did. What is the problem with that? And Ramesha says that this is a type of Torah, a type of learning. He's honing in really more on the learning aspect than the doing. In a moment, we'll apply it to the doing as well. But says Ramesha, this is a very external life. He says it's like doyeg. Misafo lachotz, it's external. And he says rather what the pasuk, what Rashi is teaching us, is that Torah has to be internal. How do we make Torah internal? How do we internalize something? By taking it and toiling and working and understanding a very critical ingredient. And he says a mashal. He says two people could do the exact same thing. He gives an example over here, someone who goes to the army to work for the Malchus of Nikolai. He feels oppressed. He feels depressed. He feels, what in the world am I doing? Such hard, back-breaking labor. But he says if the same person would own his own business and have to work the same long hours and the same back-breaking labor, he'd walk around on top of the world. Why? I don't understand. The work's hard. He says the difference is, which we all understand, the difference is one that you're gaining from it. A soldier in Tsar Nikolai's army knows he's getting nothing, barely the food that he needs to survive. Whereas if you're toiling in your own business, you know that you're toiling, you're working hard because you want to make a parnasa, you want to make money. Says Ramesha, if you don't toil on something, the reason is because you don't realize you're not holding at the level that it's your business. Because you feel like you're that Tsar Nikolai. Okay, I got to come to work, I got to check a box, and I have to move on. Says Ramesha, we have to internalize the Torah and we have to realize that it's something that we need to be part of us. That's something that we have to come to the place of enjoyment. And this is the first way he explains Naseh v'nishma. And he says that it's like a worker. And this is another beautiful mashal. A worker is hired, the doorman. Yeah, doorman, fancy building in the city, white gloves, beautifully dressed, stands there. What if it's, a slow day and one guy walks into the building the whole day? One time, open the door, good morning, sir, shut the door, and that's it. That doorman is making the exact same money. He worked the whole day. He says that's what happens when you come to the place of internalizing Torah. When you come to the place that you need to internalize Torah, what happens is your whole life is transformed. Because no longer is it a checkbox to be finished, but rather you're living it itself, and it becomes into something that every moment, irregardless. And I don't know if this is exactly what Ramesha means, but to add a drop of depth, and then we'll go on to his second shot, is that when one realizes that this is a job, a business that he loves, then every aspect of it he loves. When someone loves his work, when someone knows he's making good money, he'll even travel. What do you mean? It's difficult to travel. You'll fly in the same day to two different places. No one enjoys that. But the guy who's doing it for a big business meeting enjoys it. And even the travel he enjoys. And even the difficult meeting he enjoys. And even the waking up early he enjoys. Every aspect of it he enjoys because he knows there's a greater purpose. If we come to a place, if we come to a realization that our Torah, that our mitzvahs, that our chasadim, that our tzedakah, that everything is something that we need to enjoy, then we'll come to enjoy every single aspect of it. And we'll come back to this hopefully in a moment. But Ramosha now really comes full circle. And he says, how do we answer up the psukim? How do we answer up the psukim? If last week we were told Naseh, this week we said Naseh Nishmah, what's the chiddush? What's the novelty of Naseh Nishmah? Ramosha says an absolute chiddush, we'll call it. Only Ramosha, I guess, can say such a thing. Says Ramosha, in Parshas Yisro, Klal Yisrael say Nasa. You know what that means? That's a person that says, I want to follow the Torah. I'm going to do it. What do I need to do? I'm just going to do it. I know what to do. I know the halacha. I know how to learn. I know how to daven. I know how to give tzedakah. He's going to be a Nasa. Says Ramosha, if you don't find someone to be Nishmah from, if you don't find someone to ask questions to, if you don't delve deeper into looking for the reasons, you're not going to be a Nasa v'nishma. You're not going to do the right thing. And he says, many people, and we're going to read a line here in a moment, he says, many people, they think they're doing the right thing, but because they weren't Nishma, they didn't listen to someone, they were Nasa. And they had good intentions, and of course they're going to get schar, and of course if they're actually had good intentions, then it's an incredible thing. Says Ramosha, the secret, that which the Malachim said, who taught the children the secret of Nasa and Nishma, is to have someone to be Nishma from, to ask questions, to go and listen what's the right way of doing things. That's what Nasa and Nishma is. And now listen to these astounding words of Moshe Feinstein. Says Ramosha, Virak zehu kiyam Torah. This is the way to be Makayim the Torah, which again means it's a two-step process. Ramesh is saying a chiddush here. You ask the average person, what do? You got to follow the rules. Ramesh says no. If you just think you're following the rules, you're not. Again, step number one, Ramosha taught us a deep idea that if you just try to follow the rules, what's going to happen is you're going to get burnt out, you're going to get depressed, you're going to feel like it's a tircha, it's a bother, it's annoying, because you're that soldier in King Tsar Nikolai's army. You're that guy that just feels like you need to do it. You don't see the benefit in what you're doing. The Nasa v'nishma number one, says Ramosha, is to understand the depth of it, so you could come to realize how every part of it is beautiful, is amazing, and it's hard. No one's saying it's easy. It's hard. It's hard to come to the realization, and it's a lifelong work. Even Rav Elyashiv, they say, at the end of his life, when he would get up every single morning for 90 years, he woke up at whatever it was, 2:30 in the morning. He got up and he threw off his blanket. We've said this story many times. And they asked Rav Elyashiv, what are you doing? He says, maybe the Yetzer Hara is going to get me. Rav Elyashiv, come on. It's been 80 years. The Yetzer Hara never got you once to go back in bed. No, but it's hard to get up at that hour. So it's a lifelong work to try to make every aspect into doing what we need to do, but that's step one. But step two, says Ramosha, is not just to be na'aseh, but rather to be na'aseh v'nishma, not be na'aseh in the way that we think, but be na'aseh in the way that we're told is the right thing to do. And says Ramosha, an incredible line. V'rakzeu kiyam ha'Torah. This is the way to fulfill the Torah. Shelo yipol tachas hayetzer. That if we have the naseh v'nishma, if we have this aspect that we ask, we have someone to tell us what to do, then we're not going to fall to our yetzer hara lachshilenu, which tries to make us stumble. Liyos moirei hetera, that we're going to come to moirei heter, kiroiv b'nei Adam, like the majority of people, Hanechshalim mitzad zeh. Moshe Feinstein, from his peak as Gadol Adar, just taught us how he saw the world. Ramosha saw a world that's stumbling. Ramosha saw a world that's failing. Ramosha saw a world that unfortunately is falling to temptations. And this was Ramosha, this is 50 years ago. What would Ramosha say now when he sees all the different nisyonis and all the different problems? Says Ramosha, you know why they're falling? They're falling because they're Moira Heter, because they tell themselves, it's not so bad. I'm okay to do this. I'm being Naseh. I'm not being Nishmah, because I know what to do. I'm being Naseh. Ramosha says, Roiv Minei Adam. Says Ramosha, they don't want to do something wrong. V'zeu vadai shevach hayuser gadol ba'olam. What's a shevach hayuser gadol ba'olam? Someone who's willing not just to be naseh, but to be naseh v'nishma. How are we naseh v'nishma? By making sure we have someone to be nishma from, whether it's a Rebbe, whether it's a Rav, or whether, honestly, it could be a friend, something we've spoken about many times. Sometimes it's just someone that will be honest with you and look at you and say, what are you doing? What do you mean? I'm doing the right thing. No, you're not. No, what do you mean? I have to do this? No, you're not. No, you're not. You might have good intentions, but teaches Moshe Feinstein an incredible idea that Roiv people are stumbling for such a simple reason, and this is the incredible Shavach of Naseh v'Nishma. What's this incredible Shavach? The incredible Shavach of making sure we have someone to listen to. Now, we're making it sound very easy, but of course we know it's extremely difficult. Why is it extremely difficult? As I heard recently, I think it was Yisrael Besser was talking at the Agudah convention, and he said, if a Rebbe or a Rav never told you something you don't like, it's time to find a new Rebbe or a Rav. Because if they just tell you the things that you want to hear, then what are they doing? You can look in the mirror and you can do the same thing. What's the point? That's not the Nishmah. The Nishmah, and again, it doesn't mean someone has to tell you off. It means you're able to listen. And you're able to hear that 1 second, I was just told that I shouldn't just walk through my life the way I want to walk through my life. And I shouldn't just tell myself, I'm not holding there yet. I'm not ready to do that yet. Maybe I am. Maybe I should ask. We shouldn't go through life saying, yeah, I can't do that. I can't learn. I can't give tzedakah. I can't succeed. I can't actually overcome my temptations. Maybe yeah, maybe no. That's someone who's being a na'aseh yid, which is a level. But says Ramosha, the shevach hayoyser gadol is to be the nishma, and that's the gilui rozeh. That's what the malachim said. That's what we got, the 2 crowns. We know at Maimed Har Sinai, 2 crowns, one for naseh and one for nishma, is to be able to listen. And we'll conclude with just one almost unrelated vart, but of course everything is connected. A very short ksav sefer. It says im talves almi, if you give alone. It says the ksav sefer, if you give alone. When you give a loan, that you should give a loan. Talda, what's if you give a loan? Says the Ksav Sefer something very deep. He says, don't just give a loan. You have to give it only when you're ready to give it. If you're able to give it. It's not easy to give a loan in the right way. A loan is a very high level. Says the Ksav Sefer that the commandment is to do it from a place of im. The commandment is to be holding at a place to do it and then do it. Now, sometimes it's true, you have to just dive in. But also, the Ksav Sefer is teaching us that there's so much more to everything than just giving it. Try to make yourself into the person that is able to be holding there. Siyata Deshmaya, Parsha Nasa and Nishmah, an incredible avodah. Hopefully, When one, and we'll end with the words of Rabbeinu Yaina, when one wants to, he'll get there. And Rabbeinu Yaina famously explains, or Risal Salanter, coming off the heels of Rabbeinu Yaina, teaches us how do we get tshuva. This is more of an elul varp. This is mamish what we're talking about tonight. How does one do tshuva? How's it possible? We've done so many things wrong. Well, we could tell God we're never going to do it again. That's ridiculous. That's not true. Says Rabbeinu Yaina, famously Risal Salanter repeats, if one goes on the right path and has someone who is leading him on the path, and that's the ingredient we're talking tonight, then Hashem says, oh, I can forgive you because you're going to get there. I don't know if it take you 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years. But if you're on the right path with someone to guide you, if no one's guiding you, then you're not on the right path. Then you're on a fake, made-up path, teaches Moshe Feinstein. Then you're on the quote-unquote na'aseh path. And if you look out in the world, maybe we shouldn't, and you think about what people do and how people do it, and you sometimes wonder, where do they come up with these ideas? How could one do these things? And I'm not talking about anything in particular. I did not think about this. But if you think about it, there are things, and sometimes you wonder, how could someone do that? And the answer is, it's coming from a place of Nasa. It is. It's coming from his Kabbalah Satayra. But the problem is, teaches Moshe Feinstein, the Rive. The majority of people are stumbling because we have a Yetzer Hara. That's how God created us. And if we don't have someone to help us fight that Yetzer Hara, then it's impossible. So how do we fight the Yetzer Hara? By having someone help us. Who is there to help us? That's the Nishmah. Someone to listen to. Siyata Dishmaya, if we try to open up our ears, if we try to listen, we'll be able to fulfill and accept the Torah in earnest, a real Nasav and Nishmah, accept the 2 crowns that we'll give, the incredible Gilui Razez, or Moshe says, the Shevach HaYoser Gadol, and of course comes with that, if you're a really Mekabel the Torah of Hashem, what does Hashem say? My children want to be better. My children want to listen. My children don't want to spend their life falling. Of course, I'm going to help them get there. B'siyata Dishmaya.